I hope that you guys are doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha, and I welcome you to my channel. I'm so grateful as always that you guys are listening, subscribing, and commenting. I really appreciate the support. And again, if you guys want to support me further than just subscribing or commenting, then you can go to my Patreon site, and the link is in the description below. All right, cool. In this video, I want to speak to you guys about fights and how I feel as an INFJ, as a human being on this planet. I am extremely sensitive to fights right now. And it has to do with the fact that, my parents used to fight a lot when I was a child. Now, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, that's when they started the whole journey of fighting all the time. Before that, I was fine. Before that, I did not feel that angst or that depression or that fear of fights. If they thought I was fine, I didn't really think anything of it. But the more conscious I became, the more I understood that they're fighting for a reason. And if they're fighting, it means that they might separate and they might leave me somewhere and I will be by myself, right? So that was basically the whole idea behind me becoming afraid of their fights. So I was afraid of abandonment. I was afraid that they were gonna separate and go off on their own paths and then leave me to fend for myself, or leave me with some other parent, or leave me with someone else. And all of that caused me a lot of fear. It also caused me a lot of fear because I started getting siblings, right? So by the time I was, I would say 6 or 7, I had my 2 siblings, and the more they fought, the more I worried about my siblings. I was like, all right, cool. If I'm by myself, I can take care of myself. But my siblings, what are they going to do? Like, how are they going to take care of themselves? If they are by themselves, then I'm going to have to take care of them. And how will I do it? I'm only 7. And so I worried about that constantly. Constantly, right? And so every single time they would start fighting, even raising their voice a little bit, instantaneously I would have a physical reaction in my body. My heart would start pounding really fast, and my palms would start sweating, and I'd get a physical fight or flight reaction in my body. I didn't know what it was at the time. I just assumed it was fear. And so I associated fighting with fear, right? And so I avoided fights as much as possible, and I avoided being around them when they were fighting, or if I could do something about it, if I could help them stop it in its tracks, then I would be there and be the mediator, right? And so when I was younger, I tried to be the mediator. It never worked. And so then as a teenager, I would just disappear. I would leave the house as soon as I got home from school, and I wouldn't come back until late at night, until they were asleep. So then I wouldn't have to deal with anything if they were fighting and things like that. And I really did not want to be around that energy. I already understood at that point that it was very negative, and it would cause me to feel angst, and it would cause me to feel terrible. And it just wasn't the kind of energy I wanted to let into my body, right? Of course, they thought I was going through a rebellious phase, and I was like, yeah, I'm not really rebellious. If I wanted to be rebellious, I'd be doing other things. I'm just escaping. I'm just running away from the fighting. Recently, actually just yesterday, I was lying in bed, and a couple outside my apartment, I don't know what they were doing exactly. I wear earplugs at night because there's a lot of noise around me. It's Thailand. There's always like scooters and motorbikes and things like that going around. So I try to wear earplugs every single time I'm, in my bed or sleeping. But I noticed that even with the earplugs, I could hear these people shouting outside, and I assumed that they were fighting. And I could feel or sense that one of them was crying. I could hear one of them crying. I could hear the other one shouting, and then both shouting, things like that, right? So obviously they were fighting. And it was early in the morning. It was like 4 or 5 in the morning. So maybe they just got back from drinking and they were just, getting rowdy. But instantaneously, even though I'd just woken up suddenly because of their shouting, instantaneously I realized that I was going back into my mode of when I was a child, and my parents would suddenly start fighting. So I'd be sleeping, or I'd be doing my thing, and suddenly they'd start fighting, or they'd start yelling, and instantaneously I'd go into that fight or flight mode. And my heart would start beating really fast. I'd become really alert. I started thinking about all the different options. What could I do? Should I go mediate? Should I run away? Should I blah, blah, blah. And the same thing happened to me in my bed. I was lying in bed, it's Chiang Mai, my parents are far away. But these 2 people, these 2 strangers fighting outside, instantaneously brought me into the same state of mind. I was sitting there, and like my heart's pounding, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what should I do? Should I go talk to them? Should I mediate? Should I help them out? Even though they're strangers, they're not related to me. Or should I just stay in bed? Or should I, cover myself up with a pillow? Or what should I do, kind of thing, right? So obviously, I tried. I couldn't go out because I didn't know what was going on, and I'm not related to them, so it's not my responsibility. Also, they're gonna take care of themselves, right? They're adults. And so I was like, all right, I'll just switch on some white noise. So I turned on the fan, and that white noise kind of killed, with the earplugs, kind of killed most of the noise that was coming from the outside. Even then, these people outside were fighting for an hour almost, at least 45 minutes, an hour. And I just sat, I was lying in bed and I couldn't obviously sleep because my mind had already, and my body had already gone into fight or flight mode. I was already pumped up. I was alert. I was in that mode where I was like, all right, cool, what am I going to do with this situation? And I was lying in bed and I was just thinking to myself, how interesting it is that this childhood reaction that I've kind of had since I was 7 or 8 years old has stuck around with me, and I'm 35 right now. And so that is a long time, 28 years, that I've been sticking around and sticking to this way or this mode of dealing with confrontation, with conflict, with fighting, right? No wonder when I get into a fight in a relationship, I think that everything is ending and that person's going to leave me, and I avoid conflict as much as possible. Of course, it's impossible. So when we do get into a conflict or a confrontation, I try to run away, or I hide, or I do stupid things like that instead of being an adult and being mature about it and facing it head on, because conflict is a normal part of life. In fact, I've read several times that if you do not have conflict in a relationship, it means that the relationship is dead. Because then those two people mostly don't care about each other anymore, right? Conflict indicates that you still care about each other, that you want to solve the situation, you want to make it better, and you want to understand each other. Otherwise, you wouldn't be fighting, right? I wish I had known that when I was a child, because then it would have been so much better if I had known that my parents are fighting because they care about each other. Yes, they also have hateful feelings towards each other, but they also cared about each other a lot, and that is obviously how it works, how most relationships work. You like each other, but you also have things where you're like, oh, I really hate this about you. And so I wish I had known that. It's not that they're fighting because they're going to leave each other. They're fighting because they're trying to resolve something in between them. And that's normal and that's fine. Of course, no one really tells children that. They just tell them if your parents are fighting, it's a bad thing, yeah? And so obviously, if there's a younger INFJ listening right now, please try and not make this your default mode of dealing with confrontation. I wish that I did not have this as a default mode. And I'm really trying, obviously, right now to work on this. And of course, if you're an older INFJ who has this default mode, then work on changing it. Because conflict and confrontation or fighting in general are not negative things. In fact, they're positive things because they help us understand the other person. Of course, you'd want to do it in a way where you're not fighting or yelling at each other, but if that's one of the ways you do it, that's fine. I'm just saying that, don't fight all the time, but I'm saying it's okay to fight occasionally, right? And don't take it as a negative thing. So don't think if you are fighting in your relationship, it doesn't mean that your relationship is falling apart. It just means that you're trying to understand each other and you're trying to improve the relationship, which is a great thing, which is always a good thing. And for me specifically, what I've been trying to do is that I've been trying to really sit with these feelings. So even last night or the day before when I was sitting in bed and I had all these feelings come up, instead of running away from it, it was very easy for me to be like, all right, I'm just going to switch on my phone. I usually put it on airplane mode while I'm sleeping. I'm going to switch on my phone and I'm going to distract myself by reading manga. It's a very easy, fair way for me to run away from reality. But I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually stay here in the moment and actually feel my body, feel the emotions and the feelings and the stuff that's going through my body, the pumping of my heart and the really like the sweatiness and the fear and anxiety and all that stuff that came up. I really wanted to just sit with it and allow it to pump through my body and allow it to be there so I can really understand what's going on. Now, of course, the next time this happens, I'll be a little bit more understanding of it. I'll understand a little bit more. I'll be able to deal with it a little bit better. And as time goes on, eventually it'll disappear as a reaction because I've understood it. I've been sitting with the feelings and eventually it'll disappear. But it'll take a long time, obviously. This is a 28-year long process that I've been building up. So eventually, maybe a year, 2 years, 3, 4, whatever it might be, eventually it'll go away as a reaction. That's what my hope is. I don't want to stay like this. I don't want to be this person who just instantaneously wants to run away or hide when there's a confrontation. Confrontation's there for a reason. We're trying to understand each other. Especially if I'm going to get into a relationship again, I don't want to run away from conflict because that's just the wrong way to do it. And I did that a lot in my previous relationships, and it really hurt the people in my life. And I really don't want to do that again. Okay? All right. I hope this makes sense. I hope that I was able to explain myself to you guys. If you guys have any questions about this video or any of the videos, as I've said before, I don't do free advice anymore. So if you guys want to ask me questions, you can pay for it. All the information is below in the description. And if you guys want to support me, obviously you can do that with Patreon. Patreon's link is as well in the description below. Okay? Again, thank you so much, and I shall see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.